Makers, yo, I don't know what's going on with Thursday, but it's just getting started and like it's already getting out of control. We got some amazing news to talk about today, including I froze. I just froze. I didn't really freeze, but I faked freeze. That's what you do when you can't finish a sentence. You just fake freeze.
You're like, internet issues. Internet issues.
Tried that. I've never tried that on a call, but like next time you like get in a tough spot, right, and you don't know how to talk your way out, just be like,
was everyone else lagging there? Was everyone else lagging?
Oh, that'll be the new tactic. That'll be the new tactic. Like, oh, my internet's not working, and your camera goes off. But what I was gonna say is that we had a really amazing announcement this morning. I say amazing, like I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's a big announcement of CDK getting acquired. Yes, the whole company, CDK Global, is now owned by somebody else or another group of people. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about that today. Some crazy crypto conference in Miami, and we also have a really amazing announcement to talk about, which we are really excited about.
So excited.
Had a few show notes this morning.
Just a couple.
just a couple. We got a lot of pages. And if you don't know, if you're listening to the audio version of the podcast, you can click into the show notes. We usually include links to what we talk about, so you can dive a little bit deeper. And also, if you're on the live stream, right, all the stuff is already in the notes that you're watching. Good morning. It's good to see you on the live stream. Yesterday, we had quite a good live stream crowd going. So
yeah, it's been fun.
All right. So the principle, it's funny, the CDK acquisition news came out, and I had already typed some things in the show notes. And one is a quote from Simon Sinek, says, "Play it safe and you'll always end up with mediocrity."
Oof.
I was like, yeah,
that hit, that landed for all of this morning. And
absolutely.
Oh man, that quote is so strong. It is like literally, what are you gunning after? What are you going toward? It's it's almost like you can't even comment on the quote because it just says everything. So I don't want to get too far out ahead of it.
It works. And look, sometimes mediocrity isn't a bad thing. Like a lot of baseball players make really great careers off singles and doubles.
Yep.
Nobody remembers them.
Yeah, it's like
right.
He bat 260 every year.
Yeah,
never hit 300, but he bat 260.
That's a valuable way to go.
Right? Yeah.
But we happen to think the troublemakers aren't okay with that, right? And in a fast-moving environment, you can't be okay with that, or mediocrity all of a sudden get overtaken. I'm going to read the opening line from our email today, and if you don't get the email, we hope that you will, because it's got stuff like this in these articles, banding all of us together. It's this: for the last 2 years, we've been faced with decisions that are almost impossible to fully consider because of the velocity of change. The uncertainty didn't help either. This is why we're big believers in movement. In warfare, movement is life. Even in uncertainty, if you stay put, you're much less likely to see a good result. You aren't going to know what is going to happen fully ever. You might actually have a very low level of certainty, but what you need to know is that we must keep pushing back, because the barbarians at the gate certainly aren't sitting still.
There is so much in, I love the relationship of sitting still and moving, and what that means. I'm a runner. I'm an athlete, right? And especially, from a soccer perspective, when a soccer player, there's 11 soccer players on the field, right? And you get a max of 5 subs, and there's another 12 people on the bench. Well, throughout the game, those 12 people don't just sit on the bench and wait. They actually get up, move around in times, because what happens is their movement allows them to be ready when the game is ready for them, right? So whether or not they're going to get in the game or not, their movement actually allows them to be ready when the game is ready. So it's almost, and I say this all the time, activity breeds activity. Mm-hmm. When you keep yourself moving, when you are constantly trying and working out what's happening, you're going to be ready for when the thing hits, when things happen. All right.
Yeah, that's so true. A question came in, popped up on the screen. Isn't consistency different than mediocrity? I think it can be. It can be. I mean, I understand the question though, right? Like a consistent 260 hitter is a solid hitter, right? But so like, would people say he's a mediocre hitter? No, probably not. They'd say he's a consistent He's a good hitter. Like, I don't know. Maybe they would say he's a mediocre hitter.
I don't know.
That's a good question. Very good question posed by Nate. Thank you for asking that, because that's going to spur on some more thinking. So, so want to get it rolling today. We have 3 stories to talk about today, but the first one, Kyle, is like major news.
Hey,
like,
you know what? Before we do that, we totally missed this earlier in the week, and it won't take long, but I just want to note this. A few months back, we talked about a good friend of ours, an investor, Patrick Abad, and his dealership family coming around, a man that was hit by COVID very, very hard, was in the hospital, was given like days to live. And we
on a ventilator forever,
on a ventilator for like almost a month.
Bad news.
And this guy, the dealership banded around this person and went to outside the hospital to pray and be around the family.
Every single night, 45 minutes away from the store.
It's nuts. That man walked into work on Tuesday, I think it was.
He's back. Man, that social post hit me when I heard his voice, because I had heard so much about him, right? And I saw so many people loving on him like from a distance. And so when I heard him say the first words, I was like, oh, that's him.
Got me good.
We'll meet him at some point.
For those of you that had John, who was the man, in your thoughts and your prayers, we just want to kind of put that on the story and let everyone know what happened.
We'll get that video.
We'll get that video to share it. So I that just like popped in my mind this morning. I was like, how have we not talked about that? So let's get to news.
News. Hey man, like the news affects all the people and all the stories in automotive, which is why we like it so much. Big news today. CDK, yes, CDK Global, the entire corporation, publicly owned, has been acquired or was about to be acquired by the private equity group Brookfield. Reading from the press release, Brookfield will commence a tender offer to acquire all the outstanding shares of CDK. Shareholders will receive $54.87 per share in cash upon completion of the transaction, which is a 30% premium over the share price at the end as of February 18th. So if you own some CDK share, congratulations. You just made 30% on whatever you owned it at. But this is a major deal. Like even taking CDK from public to private, I think changes the dynamic of any organization.
It does change it. I'm hopeful for it. I think, the reality is CDK was a needed some shakeup, right? They were bringing in companies from automotive to try and like bring the innovation to the table, but there's still so much red tape. And when you're a public company, there's just shareholders to be beholden to.
Oh yeah.
And so I think moving private, potentially, shifting focus to innovation and like startup mode essentially again, could be good for CDK and for the industry. And they know what's happening. Techion and other DMS and they've got Roadster, other DR platforms are knocking at the door at that MRR.
So we started to look into Brookfield a little bit. I'm like, who is Brookfield? They're a company that invests in kind of essential businesses. And I don't know if they didn't call it a niche industry, because it's definitely not a niche industry. Oh, what does it say? I'll find it. But basically they invest in businesses that have a very strong functional business. They're not the kind of company that's looking to buy and flip companies for 2, 3, 4, 5x. Their goal is a 15 to 20% return for their shareholders. So, I mean, it's a consistent, let's hands in the dirt, let's provide good function kind of investment firm. And so we dug a little bit deeper. We're like, well, who else do they have? And then we found the next most recent acquisition. So CDK just now, but was a little company you may have heard of called Nielson.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the data that
synergy
that company has now purchased over the last week and a half. Between Nielson and CDK, the data in the US that they now have access to, connect, report off of.
I feel like it's all of it. When you put those two, I think they have all the data now. I just said data. I said data. Kyle's converting me.
Yes.
Kyle's converting me. We keep saying we're going to make a t-shirt that for Kyle wears, it says data, like DAH-TA, and mine says DAY-TA. So we have data and data.
It's going to be good.
So either way, big news. We'll see what happens. We reached out to a few people for comment. I don't think anyone's really ready to comment on this just yet. But I think from a corporate dynamic standpoint, we talk about when you're a publicly traded company and there's a stock price, there's an element of a weighing machine, weighing the profitability of the company to assess the shareholder value. And then there's the voting machine, which is just basically popular culture and what people think it's worth. When you take the voting machine out of the equation, I think that's going to lead to a much more stable business. And it'll be exciting to see kind of like an outside influence in automotive and see what their take is.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see if it increases or decreases the amount of red tape that CDK has to go through to innovate.
Speaking of red tape,
Stop.
Segue.
Time.
Nailed it. I mean, that's the best segue of the week. I'm calling it. Put it up for vote.
I was working on it. I was like, oh, how are we going to segue this one? So, something that has a lot of red tape these days is cryptocurrency, right? Everybody's in it, or a lot of people, a vast majority of people are in it. But there's a lot of lack of regulation, people uncertain what's going to happen, making it kind of like a legal tender and available. And Miami, the city, Miami really is vying to be seen as kind of crypto central for the country. And so they just had their 2020 Bitcoin 2022 festival, and where, it was like the who's who in the crypto industry. And they did something that I think from a brand perspective is super duper cool.
So
they
smart.
Like the bull on Wall Street, the iconic, bull. Well, they released a robotic looking one with laser eyes as the symbolism of like, this is the new financial center. It's like you have to click on the link and see this thing. It's like 11 feet high, and you're like, oh, 11 feet isn't tall. Like, think about yourself and then standing on your shoulders. It's a 3,000 pound like steel robotic laser eyed bull.
Ginormous bull.
It is awesome.
It is a centerpiece. Yeah. And I do think, sometimes brand has to have a stamp on it before it's realized. And they've already been, the intentionality around bringing crypto companies over the last couple of years to headquarter in Miami has been a real focus of the mayor there and of the public, the public sector. So I think, doing that leading up to a big conference and then putting the stamp on it and kind of like pointing at Wall Street going, hey, look, we know you have your bull, but here's ours.
Yeah.
Right?
And they think it's the future. So more than 25,000 attendees showed up to, hear keynote talks, and probably there's a lot of meetups going on and a lot of insider talk.
A couple billionaires,
just a couple, 2, 3. And one of the other things is, so like, how is the mayor of Miami pitching the city? Well, the majority of the pitch is pretty simple. It's, we have palm trees, number one, and we don't have taxes, right? Yeah. It's a pretty compelling pitch to make Miami the center, but Miami's got the vibe too. Right. It's got the progressive vibe. It's cool to be there. Crypto is kind of a cool thing. All that being said, Bitcoin is down 30% from what it was at November, down 6% on the week. But if you own any Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, that that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have any cryptocurrency, Kyle and I, we encourage you to just buy a little, buy $10, buy $50, because as soon as you own it, you'll start to pay attention a little bit more, which means you'll start to learn a little more, and you will realize very soon that it's not as complicated as you think, just the basics. And, with cities like Miami working right now to make it like kind of mandatorily a legal tender across the city, it's not going to be long before you're working with it in your stores, in the retail world in general. So the more you learn about it now, the more you'll be able to deploy and pivot in the future. I don't think I have another segue, but we have a special guest for this last announcement.
Yes.
Look, I feel a sense of pride on this one, even though I didn't do anything to build it. Because when your friends do something cool, you get really excited. And Ben, let's bring Ben into the show. So we surprised him. He was just checking emails. Yesterday, we had an announcement from what I would consider the dark horse in the website race in automotive, right? Like, what was that shadowy figure? Well, they just came out of the shadows yesterday. An amazing announcement on some incredible website technology that I think is going to revolutionize the consumer experience, because that's really what matters, right? I'm kind of ripping from Kyle's post, right? It's not because speed matters. It's because customer experience matters. So I'm going to let you, Ben, talk about what you all did yesterday. And we'll just go from there. And we got to keep
Let
Ben.
me do
We got to
this.
keep Ben on a leash too.
Just so everyone knows, Ben and I have also partnered in this, and Ben and I have known each other for a little over a couple years, and there's a really cool. I hope you kind of get the Auto Genius story in there just a little bit, and then we'll talk, because I think that's the real impetus to what happened here.
Totally.
It's not just like we built a website. There's a community aspect that's so rich and deep to what our core is. So,
All right, Ben.
Yeah,
we're gonna
yeah,
put
yeah.
it. We're
All
gonna
right.
put a timer up, Ben.
Under market set. Okay. So what happened yesterday was the realization of a dream, which
Hold on. I'm going to stop you right there.
Yep.
Just give us like the 30-second introduction of yourself, because not
Sure.
everybody knows.
Yeah. So I've luckily been a part of like a couple pretty magical things in my life. I started my career at dealer.com. I was there for 7 years, exit Cox, or Dealertrack, then Cox. Then Clairvoy, worked on multi-touch attribution modeling. Then we went to Prodigy, and Prodigy was like full transaction, digital retailing, and then started doing consulting and started really helping.
So a lot of stuff, a lot of tech, a lot of dealers.
Yep.
All right. You can check them out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Get the rest of the story there. I'm really bad at Twitter because I can't keep things short. Okay. So, but Auto Genius was a formulation of all those different things, which was like, you're constantly looking for product market fit. You're constantly trying to figure out how to iterate really fast. What Kyle and I sat down and figured out was oftentimes we would get calls from, whether it's me on the consulting side, him as the dealer side. Hey, what do you think about this new thing I'm inventing? Right. And that's the normal practice, is you make something, and what we said was, what if you just made a community that already knew what the itch was? What if you just made a place that allowed people in private to actually say, I can't believe this doesn't exist in the market. And this is really market product fit, just reversing the two. So really the underlying piece here is it's crazy technology, but it's sparked 100% from this community, from Auto Genius.
So let me summarize it.
Yeah.
Auto Genius started out as a community of leading marketers in automotive on a private Slack group. Now all of a sudden discussing what the real needs and the real issues are, right? Yep. Market product fit. Let's figure out what the real market need is first, and then let's go backwards.
Yeah. We didn't even know it was going to be a website platform was the first thing. Right. We're like, oh, there's enough of those. Nope. Apparently there isn't, because none of them can pass core web vitals. None of them are 100% accessible. And certainly none of them are completely tagless. And
perfect. So enter Auto Genius Labs. So this happens. There's a guy named Kevin, right? So Auto Genius Labs. All right, good. I'm helping you. I'm helping you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So Kevin Gervais, there are probably 9 websites I've ever seen in my life that get perfect 100 scores on core web vitals.
And
Kevin
what are
Gervais,
core web? And give the people that don't know what core web vitals are and why it's important.
Sure. So core web vitals is Google released a couple years ago this idea that, like, hey, websites from a performance standpoint need to master it's kind of these specific items. And what we're finding is if you do master those specific items, then your rankings actually will go up.
There you go.
They're all around speed.
Make it really efficient, make it really fast. Okay.
Yeah. And accessible. Accessibility is actually at the core of Kevin, just because he has family members on the spectrum, and it's a near and dear portion of his kind of dedicated life's work is making sure. The analogy he always gives is like, when whoever made that button that opens the doors for the handicap physically, right? We all use that. Mm-hmm. We all take advantage of that. And so when you actually make something super accessible, the whole world wins.
I love that.
And at the core of Auto Genius is you get to see this amazing front end. If you go to www.koons.com, you get to see like the live.
So it's koons.com.
You get to see this live front end. What you don't get to see is the data lake actually technically data fabric that powers the whole thing. And what is so different is, I was explaining this to someone last night, every other website vendor is Grand Theft Auto 3. In Grand Theft Auto 3, you would drive to a bridge and then you'd pause and load the whole city. By Grand Theft Auto 4, some developer out there figured out, wait a second, why are we loading trees that nobody can see? Why are we loading parts of the city?
Stopping gameplay, right? Stopping the experience.
Toyota did this with just-in-time manufacturing.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, we have all this stuff in the warehouse that we're not even using. Let's just get it on demand.
They just need it right before they put it in the car.
Bingo. Mm-hmm. So the whole website is operating under that exact mentality, which is like, we don't need a tag unless like we need to load this specific data or migrate this specific part of the data lake to a vendor or a partner. We don't need to load these vehicles unless we see an event that scrolls and like causes those things to load.
Right, saying like, hey, you might need this thing.
Yeah.
So in summary, when you go to Koons.com, this is my kind of, I'll be the layman in here. When you go to Koons.com, what you see is a site that loads, feels like instantly. All the vehicles are there. It's an app-like experience. It's that fast. And on the nerd side, if you happen to load it into Google, Core Vitals, right, it's going to be like perfect. And here's the thing. That's never, ever happened or even close in automotive before.
Not even. I mean, I think the next closest score is like a 46 and we're 95 or higher.
Right. And so, and one of the reasons for this, for the more tech heads in there, is it sits on top of a data fabric, meaning that there's just a direct pipeline from the data to the site, right? It's drawing right. There's not a lot of integration or like pulling from this, that pulls from that transfers from this, that shows up on my site.
Exactly.
What's the average load time for VDP in the industry?
Desktop is like a second.
In the industry,
in
the industry of VDP is 35 to 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And yours is AutoGenius Labs? 1 second. Look, if I'm shopping for a car, Kyle and I talk about this all the time, that there are 100 friction points that aren't even benchmarking, that just give the customer fatigue, right?
Yep.
And it's not only just fatigue, like, I don't know why I just clicked off something else I just did. Or if you're a parent, it might just be like an interruption. So like the interruption from the kid is coming and it might be coming 15 seconds from now. And I can get a lot further if my page load speeds are 1 second than I can if they're 40, whatever seconds.
Dude, we see it all the time. It's
like life just happened. I just got distracted.
We've only transitioned like 50% of the traffic and we've tripled the leads. So, but check this out. Like if you think about it physically in the showroom, we know when you speed up the sale that you have more time in F&I, right?
Right, because you have capacity. You left capacity, like someone's emotional capacity. You didn't draw it all in the buying process. You left some on the table, so now they can invest that in the F&I process.
I'll do the form. Right. I'll do the yes. Bingo.
Dude, that's so cool. That's so cool. Congratulations, first of all. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this for quite a while. I think it's going to be quite the buzz. Kyle, do you have anything to add? Because you're just in the scrum. I know you're kind of sitting back because Kyle's like, look, I don't want to promote the thing that I'm a part of. That's why this morning I was like, yo, we have to talk about this on the show. He's like, we try to keep the lane straight, but this is like, so I'll be the one to do it. We talked about.
I'll just say this is challenging everything that everyone has thought about what a website in automotive should be, which is the lowest cost, cheapest item that you have to bolt things on just to make kind of work. And it's going, no, if you build a multi-million-dollar showroom and you say you're a digital dealer and your showroom is online, then you might want to actually pay some attention to it. And the people that are going to pay attention to it are actually going to be able to push back the barbarians at the door, because it's the only way at this point in a Web 2 and then potentially Web 3 experience.
Yep.
I think on that note, we're going to end this show, because there's a lot of trouble being made from corners that you didn't even know it was coming from. And I think that's only going to continue. So when we talk about moving, that's what we're talking about. Look to the corners for the dark horses, because they're coming.